All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Colleen. How are you?
Good. A little cold, but good. How are you, Taylor?
Same. I got my warm sweater on though today, so while I had to sit
Needed.
by the window.
Yeah, just looked out and it was fine this morning, but now it is snowing like crazy where I am. So I'm kind of over it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm ready for spring.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting there. That's usually February and March kind of
Mm.
turns into that. So, well, it looks like we had a decent amount registered, not a ton, but a good portion are on so far. So a few familiar names. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Taylor. I do our communications, teach our photography program, teach a couple of classes with Colleen as well. And that my co-trainer, co-host is Colleen. Do you want to say a little something about yourself?
No, I love our classes we get to do together. We had a lot of great classes this week, and but this is always my favorite. So we get to. I always every time I do a class with you, I swear I learn something I thought I knew before. So I'm just excited to see what little tip I'll pick up today.
Yeah, same to you. Same to you. Colleen, she attached four handouts. So there's a lot to cover today, kind of in the title of the class, create a listing from A to Z. So we're going to cover everything from gathering all the tax records that you need to starting that listing data sheet, pushing that over into Paragon, finalizing everything you need in Paragon, how the data works within the MLS, as well as what you do once it's live and how you can promote it. So she attached four handouts, PDFs for you. So make sure you double click on those and download them just to kind of recap a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. Um, and this class is recorded, so it will be on our YouTube channel. I'm going to put our YouTube chat link in or YouTube link in the chat so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and see updated classes. But this class will also be on there. So if there's something that you're like, what did Colleen talk about or what was Taylor talking about? You can go back, you can rewatch certain parts of this or rewatch the whole thing if you would like. So that link is now in the chat. You'll see a little questions panel off to the right. The questions panel, go ahead and ask questions. One of us will be monitoring the questions while the other one is running the portion that we're covering. And yeah, so let us know in the questions that you can hear us and see us okay, and we will get started.
Hopefully you grabbed a nice warm cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It's I like have my little space heater on even today. It's seriously cold today. So I don't see anybody in the questions so far.
Just let us know you can hear us and see us. That's all we need, and then we'll get started. Okay, thank you, Paula. Appreciate it. All right, we should be good. So the first half, Colleen is going to cover, and then I will be behind the scenes answering any questions that you guys have, and then I will take over the second half, and she'll be answering all the questions, Colleen. So we already have a question that came through. Matthew said the first two downloads seem to be the same handout. Maybe that the handouts might be the
Oh,
same.
yep, it
Oh, yep,
does.
they are. Yep, they are.
Let me grab, I think I deleted one. I probably deleted the wrong one. So let me add the fourth one.
Thank you, Matthew,
Um,
for pointing that out.
so cloning, slideshow, which one did I miss? Autofill, entry, photos, and labels. That's the one I think I missed. Yes. Okay. I have re-uploaded. Thank you, Matthew, the good eye. All right, there
Awesome.
should be four different ones now instead of three of the same. Or two of the same and two different. So there should be a total of four now. So you should see Paragon cloning a listing slideshow, the tax autofill, and the photo entry form if you're turning that into your admins. All right.
All right, well, I'm going to turn off my webcam. I'll be behind the scenes answering questions, and I'll hand it over to you, Colleen.
All right, so we are going to cover a lot of information today. So as Taylor mentioned, this is going to be recorded, but we're basically going to touch on a lot of different products too. I also want to point out, if you're coming in from any of our vendored MLSs, not every MLS offers the same products and services. So while Paragon and most everything we're going to show you is going to be the same, you may see some differences when we get into like market stats or BSNA, things like that. But we're going to kind of cover that as we go through. So really the goal today is to show you some time-saving tips and techniques when you're getting ready, everything from preparing for your listing right through. Taylor's going to take you through what she's best at, really getting the marketing of your listing out there, how to dress up your listing, how to get a ton of views on your listing. So she's going to take you through all of that. But really, when you're going on a listing appointment, you obviously want to start with preparing. I'm kind of the Girl Scout, right? You want to prepare. You want to gather your tax records. You want to gather all the property information. You don't want any surprises when you're going on your listing appointment and you're sitting with that seller. Not that long ago, I sat with a seller who ended up owing about $10,000 in unpaid property taxes. These are things that you obviously want to know before you arrive at your listing appointment. So where do you start? The first place to start is, I always like to go into the MLS and see, has the property been listed before? Has the property closed before? Now, the great thing, and every MLS is different, but the great thing is My Real Source has over 15 years of history for these properties. So most probably the property at some point has either been listed or closed. So you're going to be able to start there. So I'm going to use one of my previous listings. And I just like to start at the power search. It's really the easiest. And when you're using the power search, think of less is best, right? You're going to type in just the Root Street address. If it's been listed, you're going to see it. I can see that it's actually been listed a few times here. So all I have to do is click on that listings 3. It's going to open up those listing records. And now I can find that particular property that I'm looking for. So I can see this 41539 Westwell Drive has closed a couple of times, and I'm just going to pull open the most recent sales record, and I can see exactly when the property was listed, what it closed for, who were the agents that were involved in that transaction, if there were seller concessions. All of that's going to show. Now, one of the things I like to do here is I like to save this as a PDF. And I like to pull this into my CMA. I'm a huge fan of Cloud CMA. I know some people use the Paragon CMA. I'm not as much of a fan as I am Cloud CMA. Cloud CMA makes a beautiful CMA presentation. Not only does it make a great presentation, but it also allows you to quickly and easily pull over your comparables without a lot of work. So the first thing I want to do at this point is I always like to start with the tax records. I like to see, I want to make sure there's no hidden surprises on this property. Again, if you're with one of our vendor MLSs, some products you may have, you may not have, but you'll see those right here in the quick action links. So I like to start off with, in this area, we use BSNA a lot. And BSNA is the trusted tax record. It's basically the way that you're looking at it, like the assessor's office is looking at it. So I'm going to actually start there, and it kind of looks like a blue garbage can. I know it's not supposed to. I apologize. It's actually a government pillar that when they squish down onto the button, kind of, I think, looks a little more like a garbage can. But when you hover over that, if you see that icon, you're going to see that it says BSNA. And what this does is it actually takes you to the live BSNA server. So for me, I loved this because previously I had some clients, as I mentioned, who owed back taxes, and we were getting close to closing and it still hadn't been paid. So they were able to go down to the assessor's office. They were able to pay them. The assessor marked it paid. And because we use that live BSNA server at My Real Source, the title company could actually print that afternoon the fact that they had all been paid. So it allowed us to still close on time. So it's really having the live BSNA server where you're actually just connected right to the assessor's office, I think is really helpful. So let's take a look at BSNA. If you are a My Real Source member, what we've done is we've started providing many of the counties for you at no cost. So let me kind of explain. Right now, if you were to go into certain municipalities or certain cities, they're charging, and I think it's crazy personally, but they're charging $6.15 now for the property records. Not every city charges, not every municipality charges, but many of them are. When I started back in the day, it was like $2, and now it's, $6.15. So it's gone up quite a bit. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to find a way to give back to our members. So if you're a My Rural Source member and you're looking in any of the 5 gross points, if you're looking in Macomb County, St. Clair County, Genesee County, or Sanilac County, we actually get that bill. So the same bill you would normally have to get your credit card out to pay, we actually take care of that. We actually get that bill at the end of the month. And believe me, it's a hefty bill. But it was a way right now that we could give something back to our members. So when you click on that blue icon, what it's basically doing is it's taking you directly, instead of having to, you found the property, now you want to go into tax records, now you want to have to type in which municipality, then you're going to have to type in the address and all these extra steps. You can see how nice that embedding is. You just click on it from that property and it takes you right to that particular BS&A record. One of the things I really like about this is where I'm starting to do my homework. I can see that this has 3 bedrooms. I can see that it was built in 1973. It has 1 full bath. It has 1,361 square feet. I can see it's got a half bath. I can see the lot size. I can see, does it have a basement? What's the frontage of the lot? Does it have a garage? All of those details are right here. How big is the garage? Does it have a finished basement? A lot of those details are provided right here. And that's where I'm starting to build my list of what I'm going to need to find those appropriate comparables. So what I like to do here is I just like to print this as a PDF. There's a little print button right over here in the corner. I generally will print this as a PDF. If maybe you notice that there were some permits pulled, maybe there was a fire at that particular property. I also like to go to the building department. I like to see, has there been any permits pulled? Again, you can see there's been some work done here, so this can lead to additional questions. And I like to know all of this before I get to the listing appointment, right? I want to make reminders to ask about these things. So you can see encroachments, you can see permits. Up here, you can even see, a lot of times they'll have not only the Google shot, but they'll also have floor plans in many cases here. So these are always worth checking out too. The other thing that I like is more and more municipalities are now putting the tax record and the water. As you know, water generally stays with the property and has to be paid up at the time of closing. So if there's a huge outstanding water bill, you don't want your buyer, all of a sudden responsible for that. Just the other day, I had over $1,000 unpaid water bill on a rental property in Detroit. So these are all things that I want to be able to fill out in my net out sheet, so that when I'm telling my seller what they're going to have in their pocket, and I'm kind of proud of myself, I usually can get within $50 of what that's actually going to be at the closing table. Those are all things you want to be taking into account. Outstanding taxes, what are the outstanding water bills, what needs to be paid up in order for that property to close. So I save all of that. Another reason I save it is if there are outstanding taxes, I like to ask those questions when we're sitting there together. A good case in point, had the nicest lady, she called me to go and list her condo. Her mother had passed away. She'd been living there for a little over, I think it was about 2 years. And when she called, she said to me, I don't know how anybody can afford to live in the city. The taxes are so extremely high. And I thought, wow, that's kind of an odd statement. So sure enough, when I went in there were thousands of dollars of unpaid property taxes. Well, when her mom had passed away, they just transferred everything into her name and the property was not homesteaded. So that was one of those times you get to be a superhero, right? We called the city. The city said, sure enough, they would rebate all of that. And we went down to the city together. She took care of it. And then a lot of those taxes were actually dismissed. So she only owed a small portion of that. And so she became a client for life. And it was all because I took the time to explain to her what she needed to do and kind of walk her through that process. And so having those things right in your CMA, I think, is really important. The other thing is, when you are getting ready for your listing appointment, not only do I like to check BS&A, But I also like to check Realist. And people say, well, Colleen, why do you need both? And every once in a while, truly, there will be a difference that you really need to pay attention to. So Realist, as I mentioned, BSNA takes you in from that little trash can looking icon, but Realist is this little red icon that you see here. So I'm going to click on that first. And that's going to take me into the Realist. And a lot of the information is going to be similar, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, but there's some additional information here. This will also tell you if the property has gone into foreclosure, if there's a sheriff sale. It will tell you if they recently refied that property, so if they took money out of it. So I can basically see that whole history right down here. But every once in a while, you will see that it says the MLS versus the tax record, and there will be a discrepancy. The MLS might say it's 2-story, but the tax might say it's 1-story, or there might be a discrepancy in square footage. And basically, the reason that happens is Realist is a combined source. So by the way, if you ever got into a legal situation, if you ever had to go before a judge, the one you would want to take is the BSNA record, because that's the trusted assessor record. That's basically the live assessor data. Realist is a combined source. So what that means is it takes information from the MLS and it takes information from the assessor's office, and it basically combines both of those so that you get all the data. And anything that doesn't match up, it will actually show you the MLS says this and the tax records say this. I kid you not, I had one not that long ago. The MLS said it was 2 stories. The tax record said it was 1. I happen to be a home in Sterling Heights. And the gentleman who didn't speak really great English, he had actually built a dormer, meaning kind of a partial second level, onto his ranch. So my first, his ranch style home, my first question was, did you pull a permit? To which he answered no. And so there's where we started, right? So those are those types of questions that you want to be able to ask, and you can see very clearly. I also print this little print button right over here in the right-hand corner. I also print this. And I have this in my CMA. Now, the great thing about Cloud CMA, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, is that you can bring all of these in. So that basically you can pull all of this data together to make a really good comprehensive CMA. All right, so there's where I start. I want to start with the Realist record. I want to start with the tax information. But I also want to educate the seller on what's going on in their marketplace. Of course, we still don't have enough inventory. We're massively down in inventory. And we have all these buyers who've been looking for quite some time. And as our spring market starts to heat up, of course, these buyers are now going to be, out in full force looking to find their home. They've been talking to buyers who still have been looking for 2 or 3 years. So we still don't have enough inventory to meet that demand. But how are we educating our seller, maybe a first-time seller, on what exactly is going on in their specific city or their specific municipality? And I am a huge fan of market stats. Again, you may belong to an MLS who may or may not have that. All my Rural Source members have that, but if you do belong to another MLS, you want to check with your board to see what products that they offer. But right up here in resources is where you can find one of my favorite products of all time, and that is Market Stats. Market Stats is not only great for posting out onto social media, you can create these great graphs, but for my CMA, it does something easy and incredible. So let's take a look. So I'm going to click on Market Stats, which again is right under Resources, your agent toolbox. It's right under the social media and lead gen, and I'm going to click on Market Stats. Now, my favorite thing is how easy it is to educate the seller, meaning easy for me, the agent, because it's going to be 2 clicks. So right up here at the top where it says Fast Stats, I'm going to click on that. And that's basically going to open up all of the counties. And we're even expanding some additional counties. You'll see that coming soon. But for my area, I'm going to obviously click on that I'm going on a listing appointment in Macomb County. I happen to know that that property is in Sterling Heights, so I'm going to just click on the city. It's literally that easy. Now watch what it does. It's going to create a fast stats graph automatically. Let me open this up so you can see it a little bit better. It's going to tell that homeowner exactly what's going on year to date. So what it does is it takes all of the information from, it takes the previous month's information, right? It's got to gather all of those stats. So I'm looking at January right here. If I'm going on a listing appointment tonight, how am I going to explain the market conditions to my seller? Well, very easily, I can see that Sterling Heights is down 23.3% in their inventory, meaning last year in January, they had 120 homes on the market. And by the way, there wasn't that much to sell last January, if you remember. But this January, we're looking at 92. So again, we've had almost a 23% decrease in our inventory, our supply. So what is that doing to our average sales price? Well, again, if you're looking at our average sales price or our median sales price, you can see it's going up, up, up still. Our median sales price was $298 last year. Our average sales price this year in Sterling Heights is almost $315,000. So why, right? Now we can easily explain to our seller supply and demand. I also love that it breaks out condos separately. And you can see actually there's been a couple new condo complexes that have been going up in Sterling Heights. So you can see that's reflective in these numbers. They have 13% more condos on the market this year. And that means right here, we're seeing an increase. We're still, right, because we still have buyers looking, but not as severe as we're seeing in our single family homes. So these are really easy graphs. I print this. And by the way, there's a whole class on market stats. I love this product because this is just the tip of the iceberg of what it does. But I print this. I just usually print it as a PDF. And I also hold this into my CMA because these are all critical pieces. By the way, if we're all doing CMAs, what makes yours better than mine? And it's the detail and the education that we're giving to our sellers on why, if we're giving them a price range, maybe we want to put them at the high end of the price range. And instead of just telling them, it's always great when we, the agents, can show them on paper exactly why we would recommend that. So I'm a huge fan and it's just a great product. It does so much more than even that. We teach that also in the lead generation class, but that is market stats. Again, where you're going to find that product is right under resources and the social media. And think of resources as where all your agent tools are. So, we've started getting all of our information together. Now, of course, we want to put it into a great CMA presentation, right? We want to do our search. We now want to show them a CMA that's going to show them all of those comparables. So how do we put that together? So we've started gathering our data, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, where the house is. How do we come up with the right comparables next? And that we're going to do right up here in our search. So I'm going to do I want to do this search versus the other types of searching because I really want to add in more detail here. I want to put in what an appraiser would use. What is an appraiser in this area going to use when he's trying to comp out that home? We need to know that, right? So we're going to go up to search. We're going to search by class. And in this case, I'm going to search for a single family home because I know that's what it was, right? If you are brand new to Paragon, remember when you're doing your searches, if there's ever a question on what goes in a particular field, you can always do that by clicking the magnifying glass to the right, and it will simply tell you, are you looking for a condo? Are you looking for a farm? I've never actually sold a farm yet, but I am looking for a single family home. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Down here, I could put in the area of Sterling Heights, but that's not what an appraiser is going to do. So let's do it just like an appraiser is going to do. I'm going to show you some shortcuts here. So obviously, I'm not interested in what the rental would be because they want to sell their home. So I'm going to make sure I've got for sale. Now, I'm kind of old school. I've got my license 25 years ago. And of course, closed is the most important number that we're actually looking at, right? But being a big Floyd Wickman fan, and probably not a lot of people will even know who Floyd is, he used to be a great real estate coach who I loved in the 90s and just really funny, still funny today. But he always said, if you're going to sit down with a seller, Colleen, you better know that they know every house in their subdivision that's active and they know things that are pending because they're watching those, and they're going to want to know that you know it as well. So I always like to include any active, pending, or closed. Of course, the number that we're actually getting the comparables from is the closed number. But I also, if they ask me about 123 Main Street over here, have you seen 123 Main Street? I want to have that in my report to answer any questions that they have. Like, did it have a finished basement? Because they're going to ask you. They assume you've seen every listing on the market since the history of man, right? So you want to have those right in your CMA report to be able to answer those questions. Of course, I hate those MLS calendars. I'll just be honest, I do not like them. So the easy way to find what an appraiser is going to find in this market is I want to use the date range, but I'm not going to use those stupid calendars you have to click on and click 6 months back and then click on the date, and it's just way too hard. So if you use the date range, I can just say, I want to go 6 months back, because that's what an appraiser is going to do. All right, so I'm going to jump down and I'm going to start answering my questions. I know this happened to be a one story. I always want to try to compare, of course, a one-story dwelling to a one-story dwelling, unless you can't. So we're trying to do apples to apples, right? That means we're not comparing a 1,000 square foot brick ranch to a 5,000 square foot colonial, right? That wouldn't make sense. And that's not what an appraiser is going to do. I am aware that there are sometimes you are doing these in rural areas. And maybe you're out in the country and, you know, there isn't a house within 1 mile. Maybe you have to go out 5 miles. Maybe you can't find another single story. So sometimes you do have to expand these. I'm going to show you kind of the basics today, but keep in mind, sometimes if you can't find, if you're in the middle of the country and there's not another house for 4 miles, then certainly you can't stay in 1 mile, right? So you sometimes have to play with these. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for doing that. All right, so I am going to say that this is a 3-bedroom home, which we know. And I'm actually going to leave it 3 to 4 just because there's not a lot of inventory. I want to make sure I have enough comps. It's a 1.5 bath. So I'm just going to do 1 to 2 to pull everything in that I can here. I know it is built on a basement. I know that it has a garage. I could even specify if I wanted to make sure I was looking for 2-car garages. But here's a little tip. In this market where there's not enough inventory, don't put too much in because you do want to make sure your goal is really to shoot for 3 to 5 closed comps. Can't always get those exact, but that's really what we're shooting for. If we can get 3 to 5 closed comps, then we're doing well. All right, so we're going to scroll down a little further. Again, you could put things in features, like if it's on a septic, you could compare it to a septic. I just get a little bit nervous about that in this market because there's just not that much on the market. All right, so we're going to jump down to the square footage. What is the square footage rule? The square footage rule, every appraiser I talk to, and again, this is not if you're way out in the country and waterfront is also a different animal. But this home, when we looked at the tax records, was 1,361 square feet. Okay, so an appraiser is going to look at 20% in their square footage rule. So a lot of people will say, well, Colleen, if it's 1,000 square feet, where do you stop comparing? Is 5,000 too much? Well, yes, you want to use that 20% rule, and that's what appraisers use. So in this case, what we would do is we would take that 1,361, just in case you're new and you haven't done this again, trying to make it as easy as possible. So we would be looking at about 272 square feet. So that means you're going to take that 272 and you're simply going to add your 1,361 on the top, right? And you're going to minus it off the bottom. That's going to give you your 20% rule. So I'm just going to, for the sake of time, without going into it too perfectly, I'm going to say 1,600 to, I think it was 1,100, or just a little under 11 is going to be my 20% rule. Okay, so we're adding 20% to the top and we're taking 20% off of the bottom. You could, again, add more detail in here, but just be careful in today's market, not a lot to compare. So if you're putting in all these fancy features like fireplace and 3-car garage, may not come up with enough comparables. So at this point, you're probably thinking, well, lady with the fuzzy hair, you have 8,600 properties. You're going to be there for several weeks preparing this. Well, we didn't put in the most important thing, location, location, location. We could type in a city, but we're not looking for houses all over Sterling Heights. We're really looking to do what an appraiser is going to do, which is to be within 1 mile of your subject property. So how do we do that? We're going to go into our map. I'm going to show you a nice, easy way to do this. Right up here at the top where you've got this field, when your map opens, by the way, you'll notice that X is really where your office location is. So it's kind of finding your office and saying, okay, you work here. By the way, if you don't want it to be that, you can set in your preferences it to open somewhere else. But in this case, what I want to do is I want to base my map on my listing that I'm going to go list. So I am going to type in the address, 1539 Wessel. And I like this address. A lot of people say, use this address a lot. It just shows a lot of really good examples, and that's why I use it so often. So I am going to say, we are going to be listing a home at 41539 Wessel Drive, and I want to base my map off of that. Okay, so now what it did is it just brought us to that particular address, but I want to do what an appraiser is going to do. I want to stay within 1 square mile of that address. I'm drawing my map here. Okay. Now what you can see is I'm starting to come up with those comparables. I can see my first closed over here, but you also see some numbers. And these numbers just mean that those flags can be kind of close together. So as I zoom in, you'll see it actually breaks them apart. But if they're very close together, you can just click on those cluster of numbers and you can actually see the comparables right over here. So it allows you to jump around and see each one. If you zoom in, it will show each one individually. Couple quick things here though. If you're doing a real CMA and you are, just kind of zoom this in a little bit here. Let's say you're looking in this particular area, we're doing our 1 mile radius here. And let's say that you know that this area over here on the left-hand side is all new construction. And of course, you don't want to bring all that new construction into our home because it was built in 1958, right? So that really wouldn't apply. So if you've got an area that you want to omit from all the comparables you're bringing in, by the way, you could do this if you were searching for a buyer and properties. If there's a small area that you want to omit, or maybe you want to omit waterfront, so that your little brick ranch 10 streets off the water doesn't have all those $1 million comparables that you got to now go unselect. Here's a really easy way to do that. If you go up to where it says draw and you click on the polygon, I like the polygon. You could use any of the shapes. I like the polygon the best. But let's say that we know this happens to be waterfront, and we don't want waterfront messing up our comparables. I can literally draw a shape on my radius. So I can say, okay, any property that falls in that new construction or any waterfront properties, I don't want to be included in the numbers that I want to pull from my CMA. So you're probably thinking, well, that just made a shape on a shape. Well, one more step. In this case, I want to say, instead of including what's in that shape, I want to exclude anything that falls in there. So if there were waterfront listings in there, if there were new construction listings in there that you didn't want to automatically pull over into your CMA, that's a great way to omit them out without having to go back and deselect a whole bunch of properties. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Kind of just to review it one more time, and I'll actually show it over here where there's a property. So we've got a closed listing here. If I didn't want to include this, let's say this was waterfront, again, you're just going to draw your shape. I kind of like the polygons, a little easier. I'm going to simply say anything that falls in that waterfront area, I don't want to include. So I'm just going to exclude it, and you'll see it actually pulled that comp right out. So I'm not going to have to go back in and deselect the ones that didn't really make sense for me to use. Okay, so at this point, now we've got our location in. Our next step is we want to bring those into Cloud CMA, where we're going to make a wowing CMA presentation for our seller. So we've got our criteria, just to kind of recap. We've got our criteria in here. We've got our map search right here. And I've got my now 13 comparables. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, Colleen, you said you want to shoot for 3 to 5. And you're right. If I was doing this as a real life CMA, I would want to add more information like the school district. That would be one. I would also probably want to add in a year built range. Again, don't want those new construction homes in. So I'd probably even add a little bit more information. But for the sake of time in our class, and I want you to hear everything Taylor's got to say here, we came up with 13. Now, I have to be honest, I have a little OCD. So when I look at this, and it's a hodgepodge of pendings, actives, and closed, it makes me a little crazy. So what I like to do is I like to go to the top of the column heading, and I like to sort it. I want to know how many actives. Good. There's 2 actives in his neighborhood. How many closed, and then only 1 pending. So in this case, if I'm grabbing 5, and I'm just kind of squinting a little bit here, but I know this one had an attached garage. This one does not have an attached garage. So I can kind of even do it from here where I'm actually picking my comparables. Now, in real life, I would really go through these. I would actually open them up and take a quick look at them just to make sure that they're good comparables. But I'm going to say, okay, I've picked my comparables. I went through them. I see which ones are attached garage. Mine has an attached garage, so clearly those are the ones I'm going to want to use versus this one who has a garage that's detached in the back, right? So now I'm going to say, I don't like all the gobbledygook on here. I've picked the ones I want to use. Just show me those. So I'm going to go up to checked. Now I have my perfect CMA comps ready to go over into Cloud CMA. I've used 7 different CMA products in my 25 years, and I can tell you I'm a huge fan of Cloud because they make it easy. Let me show you the easy button. Now, I want to point out that we have a class on everything I'm showing you. So there's a class on market stats. There is a class on Cloud CMA. We're not going to go too far into Cloud because we got a lot more to show you today. I'm just kind of show you how to get them in there. And then I'm going to show you kind of what that finished presentation looks like. So I've got my comparables. Now I want to click the easy button. That easy button for Cloud CMA is up here in Actions. When you click on Actions, there are 2 options for Cloud, by the way. One is if you're working with a buyer and you want to create a great buyer tour, but we just want to do a traditional CMA right now. So I'm going to click Cloud CMA, and that's the hardest part about doing your CMA. I know you're thinking, how can it be that simple? But it is. The hardest part of doing your CMA is actually finding your comps in Paragon and clicking that easy button. Now from here, you would be giving your CMA a name, like Sally Seller, and you can see all the comparables, their MLS numbers are already imported for us. So I'm just going to kind of give you a quick tour of what it looks like when you're in Cloud. I do want to bring over my subject property so I get a nice cover sheet. By the way, one thing I did neglect to mention is when you are looking at the BS&A record. So if you remember a little bit ago, we looked at the BS&A record and I showed you there can be a floor plan, there can be a public photo, which is usually the Google Street photo. I like to save those photos, and I'll tell you why. They're public record photos. Let me just show you what I mean. But I like to save them because I use them for my cover shot. So here's a little time-saving tip. When you're looking at this BS&A record that I showed you, if you right-click on the photo, because it's a public record photo, not an agent photo, by the way, I want to actually save that. I usually just save it to my desktop because I want to use that as the front cover for my CMA. And let me show you what I mean. So now we're preparing our Cloud CMA report. And if you don't add a front cover, that's okay. It'll give you a Google overhead shot. But I don't think that looks very nice when you're going to wow a client. So what I do is I will save that photo like you saw me do. And you can even crop it, by the way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to crop this. I don't like that date on there. And now I've got a really nice front cover for my CMA. Cloud CMA is literally 3 tabs, and publish just means save. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click this Fetch Listings button, and it's going to start pulling up all that data, and it's going to put it into a beautiful CMA presentation for me. It does give you kind of an agent page so that you can see the highs, the lows. But here's what I really like about this. You can put in your own suggested list price. I kid you not, this really happened. Listing a home in Sterling, just a couple down from the one with the dormer that I was talking about earlier. From the outside, this house was just a dollhouse. I mean, every tulip was planted in a straight row, shutters perfectly painted, everything was perfectly maintained. So I put my CMA together, showed up, and as I was taking my shoes off, which I generally do when I'm walking into a listing, I stepped into blue shag carpeting. I mean, like Grover blue, and it was like this thick. The entire house had not been updated at all. It had those big 70s wallflowers that they used to stick on, like the Brady Bunch. You know what I'm talking about? And I know they say it's coming back, and I know Taylor likes that whole 70s look, but it ain't ever coming this far back. So literally, this house had not been updated since it was built in the 70s. And here's me in the bathroom. This is quite some time ago, with my CMA trying to pull pages out, right? Because I had given a suggested list price, which was going to be way too high for what I had just walked into. And so the idea here is that with Cloud CMA, you can put a suggested price in, but you can also change it on the fly. There is where I can click into my CMA, hit edit, and put a new suggested price in, which will change it. So I love that feature. You don't have to be in the bathroom like I was trying to rip pages out of your CMA. All right, other things that you can do on this first page of Clouds, again, you can kind of grab and drag and drop which order you want. Maybe you want to start with the actives when you're going through them so they know you've done your homework. You can also go in and leave notes. I used to be that agent who I would have all my printed listing tickets, and I would have post-it notes like this one had no central air, and that's why it sold for less, or this one was a foreclosure. You can do that same thing in Cloud CMA. So you can put those notes in, and so you don't forget to discuss something. Like, maybe it was a foreclosure, or maybe it was stripped on the inside, or you maybe didn't pick this one because it's an attached garage. Maybe I would want to point that out right here, that this is an active listing, but yours has an attached garage, and you can clearly see this one didn't. So these are all great things. If you got all the way to this step and you wanted to deselect a property, you realize, oh, I didn't mean to grab that one, you can also deselect it. You can even figure out positive and negative adjustments. I don't want to go too far into this, but RPR actually has an amazing tool, because I wish I was like that Joanna Gaines. She on HGTV, she walks in and she's like brilliant. She just like, we'll just knock this out and this will bring us another 20 grand in value. And I don't have that gift. So what you may not know is through RPR, which is the Realtor Property Resource that you get from NAR, RPR actually has a tool that's based on the parcel. So for instance, if you were to put $25,000 into a kitchen remodel here and $25,000 into that same kitchen remodel in California, it's going to bring a wildly different return of investment, right? And so what it does is it asks you, the agent, a series of questions. When was the remodel done? It will ask you a series of what types of, did they use granite on the countertop? So that's things like that. It will also then ask how much they spent. And then obviously the older remodel, the less it's worth. But what it does is it actually gives you a value. If your house is the only one that doesn't have a garage, you can figure out the value in that neighborhood of what a garage is worth. And then you can do a positive or negative adjustment with those numbers. I thought that was really cool. I've used it a few times. I really like it. Don't want to go too far into the weeds there, but basically Cloud CMA gives you this one page where you've brought over all the data. Now you can go through it. Just make sure that you've got all the comps that you wanted right here. And then lastly, your customized report is just basically your template. This is where you can set up your company colors, but you only have to do it one time. The nice thing is you can put information about your company in there, and it's always there. If you haven't taken a Cloud CMA class with us, please do. Again, it's one of my favorite products, but I just think it does so much. You can add in all the photos, or you can choose. And then lastly, you're just going to save it. I'm going to show you a CMA that I just completed, that we just closed. So let me jump to that one real quick. But the idea is all your CMAs are saved here. I'll show you the one that I did for this particular client. And just so you kind of get an overview of what this looks like. Okay, so let me change it to full screen mode so you can kind of see it. This was my end result, and it took me about 7 minutes. My template's already set up, so it knows my company information's inserted, my contact information is there. Remember how I said we could bring those real list reports in? Remember how I said having the BS&A record coming over? And this was a great question. This was a really good example. I brought the BS&A record over, and it turns out the deceased sister was still on the title. So that was something we needed to clear up. So we could see that because it came right from the assessor's record, who was actually on title at the home. And so we were able to get that discharged. But those are those questions that you want to remember to ask. Remember how I said in this case, in market stats, we were down almost 43% in inventory when I sat down with her, and our average sales price went up almost $50,000 due to the lack of inventory. I like the way Cloud also shows those properties. And here's one of my favorite things. When the seller says, yeah, but, ooh, that's some blue. When the seller says, yeah, but did Joe Fumagalli over there, did he have a finished basement? Well, I can actually see, wow, that's a shocking watermelon color as well. Apparently they were into bright colors at this home. But down here you can see, yes, actually it was a partially finished basement. And so we can answer those questions instead of saying, you know what, let me look that up for you, right? We've got it right here in our report to answer those questions. There's also some great marketing pieces in here. You can choose which pages you want to include. You don't have to include it all. But I like that here it was showing that sellers on average were getting 105% of their list price, and their average time on market was 13 days. So I like a lot of the marketing pieces too. All right, so we've gone through preparation. We've gone through getting all the information, getting what's going on in their marketplace, creating our CMA. Now, of course, we got to have our forms filled out so they can go ahead and sign, and now we have the listing. But I want to show you some cool pieces of that as well. And the pieces I'm going to show you now, I just want to point out again, because I get this quite a bit, if you are with different MLSs, some MLSs use Zip Form. Some MLSs use Transaction Desk. So it really just depends, because we invite all 9 of our vendored MLSs in here to see our classes. I just want to point out that you may not have every single product. You'll have most of them, but every MLS offers different things. So the next thing I want to talk about is quickly preparing your forms. When you are in a hurry to write an offer to purchase and you're competing against 3 other agents, the last thing you want to have to do is go in and key in a bunch of information. When you've got a listing appointment coming up tonight and you're in a hurry, the last thing you still want to do is key in a bunch of additional information. So let me show you some shortcuts. First, we're going to go back to our old toolbox, which is under resources. And today we're going to be showing Transaction Desk. Transaction Desk is set up so you can actually pull directly from the MLS if you're writing an offer to purchase. But if you're starting with a brand new listing, what I'd rather do, especially if it's never been listed before, I'd rather start from the public records. I'd rather make sure the listing information is going in correct versus pulling it from the MLS where another agent may have entered it. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on this little house over here to the left, and I want to add a new transaction. So I'm going to click Add. And watch how easy this is. So I, of course, want to give my transaction a name. We'll just call this 123 Main Street just to make it easy. And of course, I want to apply my packet of forms. So if it's a new listing, I, of course, want to apply my listing package. Now, where do I want to pull the data from? Again, if I were writing an offer to purchase, I might want to pull it right from the MLS. But in this case, I actually want to pull it from the property information. Now from here, you can see because I'm applying the listing package, it knows that I'm going to be the listing agent. So it's going to fill my listing agent name in all the appropriate places. The next thing I want to do is I want to import from the tax records, but there's a little trick to this. You could leave here and go into the tax records and pull up all that information, but that is way too much work for me. So I'm going to use the shortcut. I'm basically going to go to the little magnifying glass to the right, And I'm going to find the county first. So I'm going to list this in Macomb County. So I'm simply going to find Macomb, but I'm only going to fill in 2 additional pieces of information. And here's why. If I fill out all of these fields, I can almost guarantee you that I'm going to get an error because tax records are very exact. So if I type in the word drive and the assessor's office has it as DR period, it's not going to come up. So here's a trick to always make your searches come up. Now, when I say always, let me give one caveat. If there are 2 parcel IDs to a property, sometimes that can trip it up. Sometimes if there's a parcel and there's another parcel attached to it, not all of it comes up. So, but in 99% of our scenarios where we're listing a single family home, all we want to do is pick the county, the address number, and then the route street name. Leave off the circles, the drives, the ways, the places. I'd leave all of those off. It's kind of like Google. Less is best. So instead of putting in Wessel Drive, which this happens to be, I am going to just type in the word Wessel, search tax data. Immediately it pops up. Of course, I want to start my listing off with that information. And I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And it's going to begin building all of my listing paperwork. Do you see how nice that is when you now have the address that's coming in, the city, the county, the zip code, the subdivision, the lengthy legal description, all of that's flowing in. I also love that it's bringing in the owners of record. So whoever is on title or whoever the assessor says owns that home, it's also bringing them in and labeling them as the seller. Now you're probably thinking, well, why does that matter? Well, if you're using Authentisign, it'll know where every seller signature should go. It'll pre-tag the forms for you, and it will have the seller's name under all the appropriate places they're going to be signing. So it saves a tremendous amount of time. So I have the sellers of record now, and I want to show you 2 quick other pieces before we turn it over to Taylor. One is, okay, I have all my listing paperwork started, right? All my listing documents are here. So if I go into my listing agreement, that information is flowing now into my exclusive right to list. It's flowing into my addendum. So all of that information is carrying over. So if I were to click on my listing agreement here, I'm just going to preview it real quick for the sake of time. You can see that all that information is now auto flowing into that listing agreement, which is great. However, what I generally will do is I'll fill out most of my listing paperwork and I'll go on my listing appointment. But there are still some things that we don't know yet, right? We don't know what our final listing price is. We don't know what our room measurements are. Hopefully you're using the new free Kubacasa app that you can actually get through My Realtors or any of our vendor MLSs. All of them provide that. And you literally just download the app and it does the measuring for you, creates these awesome floor plans. It's free up to 5,000 square feet. It's very cool. When I'm at the listing appointment, that's really the time I'm getting the additional pieces of information. So here's a little trick. I fill out all of my listing paperwork. I generally print it out still, kind of old fashioned like that. I then take it on my listing appointment. I get it signed. Now I know the final listing price. Kubacasa just gave me all of the room measurements. I can see the accurate square footage, all of that good stuff. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to have to fill all of that information into a data sheet and either turn it over to my admin or have to go back manually into the MLS and fill it all out again. That's stupid. We're doing way too much work that way. So here's what I do. In the data sheet, I fill out all the required that I know. Then once I've gone on the listing appointment and they've signed and I have the listing, I go back into this data sheet and I fill out the key pieces I didn't know, like what floor was the first bedroom on? What were the room measurements? Then I actually do one other thing. I fill out the data sheet and I click this upload listing button. When you do that, whether you put in your own listings as an agent or whether your admin does, it basically creates a partial listing for your office. So let me show you. So I'm not going to fill this all out just for the sake of time. I'm just going to pretend that I put in most of this, right? I'm going to now click the upload listing button. Basically, what it just did is it created a partial listing. Taylor's going to talk a lot more about partial listings in just a moment. It created a partial listing for me. So now when I go to maintain my partial listing here, if my office admin is in charge of maybe adding the photos, or maybe she's in charge of reviewing listings before they go live in the MLS, instead of her having to rekey in all the information off my data sheet, I can push it to her. Now, it's not a live listing yet, but what it does is it shows up as a partial, and she now can go in and add my photos, maybe add my signed seller's disclosure documents, whatever. I have OCD, so I kind of like to put them in myself. So I just click that button and I go in, and now I can finish adding the photos, hit save, and your listing is now live in the MLS without having to rekey in all of that stuff from your data sheet. So I love that. Also in Transaction Desk, there is where you can send your seller's disclosures to your seller. They can fill them out right from their email. They can even sign them now. Before it was 2 steps. Now they can fill them out and sign them, hit save, and it actually comes right back to you, the agent. So much that you can do in Transaction Desk. There is an entire Transaction Desk class, so don't feel overwhelmed. I'm just kind of touching on each one of these products and how they kind of work together. But that is a really easy way of pushing all the data right from the data sheet over so you or your admin can finish it up. So while we're here, one last step. I want to make sure I'm adding my seller's disclosure, or maybe, maybe your office admin is. And with Paragon, that's super easy. Most MLSs require those within 48 hours. Our rule is 48 hours or 2 business days. But I want to just click here. I want to add in those disclosures, and I'm going to do that simply by clicking Browse. I've saved it on my desktop. So I'm going to go to my class examples here, and I'm going to say that this is my seller's disclosure. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to label it seller's disclosure so that everyone can see that in the MLS. This is really nice too, because when that buyer is ready to write their offer, they need that document. But even nicer, if you are working with the buyer and you do that one-click transaction in Transaction Desk, it actually brings in your filled out seller's disclosure for your buyer to sign, so they can sign all the documents at once. It makes it really easy. And I'm just going to say that this is going to be a public document, and I'm going to hit save, and it's added. So really easy to add those additional documents. All right, I think I've covered everything on my list, Taylor. Taylor is going to take you through the fun stuff now. The marketing of properties, how to make sure you're getting great captions and descriptions. I tell you, every time I watch her, I learn something I didn't know before. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Taylor, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Great job.
Thank you. Did I miss anything?
No questions came through, so I think everybody was following along okay, and yeah, should be good. So
hopefully I didn't put them to sleep. All right, well, I will answer questions while you take it from here.
All right, sounds good. All right, you should be seeing the data sharing map right now.
I see it.
Okay, all right, so just to kind of piggyback off what Colleen covered, she talked about gathering all the information, how you do that, how you pull it all in, get your comps, and then push it over into Paragon, and the partial function, which a lot of what I would say about the partial is kind of what Colleen said too, but there is a lot riding on that from a marketing standpoint as well. But just know that when you have that information on your data sheet and you push that over, it is feeding over for you, making it super easy. It automatically is going to save as that draft / partial under your account. Now, if an admin did that, or you did it and you want the admin then to go in and do some final checking or anything like that, it's all that availability is there for the admin and for you. So by how that works is assume identity. So an office admin has access as like a broker and be able to see any partials, maintain any listings under that brokerage. And they can actually go in, and if they need to, they can assume that agent's identity. So if I wanted to go in and assume Colleen's identity, I can do that. If you have an assistant that you want to be able to have their own login and assist with listing entry or anything like that, same thing, you can have Assume Identity turned on. So now it's tracking me as Taylor, but if I was going in as Colleen's admin and adding any, associated docs or going through and adding any photos that she sent me, I can easily go in. It knows that it's Taylor doing it. The timestamps, the tracking is all there, but I am working on behalf of Colleen. So now I can go in and I can see all of her partial listings if I wanted to. Now, for the sake of kind of what Colleen just did, being the agent, getting all the information that she needed to gather, get it all started in Paragon and pushed over to a partial, we want our members using the partial function for many reasons. One, it's going to obviously be the best way that it can look before it goes live. But you want that to really sit with you because of how the data flow works in the MLS system. So we data share, but we also have all of these features within Paragon that communicate to buyers and to sellers and anybody that is set up in the MLS. IDX feeds to agent websites, syndication. So you got to think of things that once the listing is saved, and let's say it's not fully complete, you only have one photo, you didn't take time to add all the extra marketing, bells and whistles and everything like that, you just wanted to get it live. And if you do that before it's ready and you want to go back in the next day or something, the system sees it as a listing update. So you want the system to see it as a new listing. So when it's seen as a new listing, it gets automatically pushed throughout Paragon, all of our regional MLSs, and those notifications go off in the collaboration center and auto emails and all of that. Bam, it's right there in the MLS for anybody to see this new listing hit the market. And that's the time that they see that, and you want them to have you want to have a beautiful primary photo, you want to have all your photos, you want to have all the links and everything that you need ready to go so that they get that first impression and they get that new listing alert. It also goes out to all our data sharing. So within MyRealSource, you have access and exposure to 98% of the state. So we have the most data sharing in the whole state of Michigan, all within our home MLS system. So if you were to do a seamless search, you wouldn't know if it was MyRealSource or if it was the Upper Peninsula MLS that we also vendor up here. So you would only know that by a little field down at the bottom that says the originating MLS. And with that, that's how seamless this data sharing is. They're getting that right away for our regionals. If it's outside of our regional MLS, like the west side of the state over here, Mishrick, that can be anywhere from, about a half an hour or so, depending on, we call it the bus station. So when the bus leaves, if it's already taken off for a data poll, it could be up to, about a half an hour or so, but it also could be really, really quickly depending on when you get to the bus station. So just know that having that listing set up as a partial and doing all the things I'm going to show you before pushing it live is really important because it's that new listing alert. It's pulled, that urgency is there. You go in later and you update, which sometimes things happen, we understand, but it's seen as a media file update, and all that information, for one, doesn't get a new listing alert excitement notification sent over. But also it can take up to 24 hours depending on what's put in place between the brokers, the IDX vendors, and things like that. So just keep that in mind when putting your listing in and making it live. So utilize this partial function keep it in here until you're really ready to push that live. So when you were to open up your listing, you go to the listings tab here and you can hit maintain partials. So that's what I just opened up. And then your listing will be there for you to now go through all the steps, really easy, right there off to the left, each section of steps that you would have to do to get your listing ready to go. So once all that data has been filled out in the listing data sheet like Colleen showed, a lot of those fields will already be populated for you, so you're not having to go through and do all that. But for the remaining ones, the R means required, but you can tab through each section, which is really nice. Seen some where you have to kind of click around and it's all over the place on the screen. Just simply tab through. It also breaks it up into containers for you, so it doesn't seem so overwhelming. You can go in, you can minimize the containers that you've done. I also like that we have a tours and virtual video section. We have up to 4 links that you can add to market your listing. So if you wanted to do any kind of video tour that you maybe create your own, and you can brand yourself on it, you can brand your brokerage on it, and then put that URL in the branded placeholder here. The system understands that that's the branded virtual tour, and it will pull that and it will put it on all the places where branding is allowed. So your single property website, it will be there for you. Any kind of advertising platform out there, it will be there. Then do a non-branded version and it'll go out throughout the MLS and the collaboration center, IDX, things like that, where you don't, part of the MLS is they're not going to see all of the other agents branding or anything like that. It's still going to be friendly for every agent and their client. So an example that I like to show is one that Colleen did. Whether you want to pay a professional videographer company to do these tours, or you just want to do one with your smartphone, and you can go in and you can just take that link right from your YouTube channel. So you'd set up a YouTube, upload that photo, and you can put in your tour that you walk through into listing entry. So here's an example of Colleen.
Want to take you on a property tour of a new listing at 50839 Marshall Lane in beautiful downtown New Baltimore. Actually, we're just steps away from beautiful Lake St. Clair as well. So let me take you on a tour. Stepping inside here, we have an entrance to the 1.5 car garage. We walk right into the living room. It does have a gas fireplace. And then
so to get that link, you just hit share and then copy that URL. At the beginning of that one, Colleen mentioned her name and her brokerage. So that one can go right into the branded virtual tour. And then let's say that she got an aerial view video done, paid a professional company to come and do that with the drone, and they provide a branded and an unbranded. Always make sure the company has one with your name and your brokerage, and then have one that doesn't. And you can put both versions here. So you have multiple ways, URL options for promoting this property, and that is in the tours and virtual video tours section in listing entry. So you'd go through, you can tab through each section, fill out all the data fields that you need. From there is where you can upload multiple photos. So the system allows for 99 at a time. 99 is a lot of photos to add to a listing, but we just have it turned on as high as the system allows, which is 99. Feel like from experience of doing photography and photos that I've done, I tend to kind of be anywhere between 40 and 50 photos. But I am a strong believer in quality over quantity. We don't need to see 3 shots of this the 3 same kind of shots. If you're going to do multiple pictures of the same room, you want to do another different angle and then maybe a close-up shot. Things like that. So I found that around 50 is probably best depending on the size of the home. So for, you know, an average size home, I tend to be around, 40 to 50. Unless there's certain things about the home that needs a lot of extra attention, maybe some acreage, maybe they have a pool and lots of gardening and landscaping and stuff like that that you want to take pictures of and add to enhance it. But from my experience, that seems to be kind of the winning number. Now, when you upload the files, you can do all 99 at a time if you would like, and it'll load in a list for you. We have high resolution photos without it being so high that when you're browsing through like a website, it's not, have you maybe experienced that where you flip to the next photo and it's just slowly loading that photo? We cap it out at 3072 by 2300. So it's going to be really high res, no heavy framing, sharp, crisp, without it being such a heavy bogged down file size that's going to take forever. So if you ever wonder what the specs are for the photos, if let's say a photographer asks, that's going to be right here under the requirements when you go into photo editing of listing entry. So in case you ever get asked and you're like, oh gosh, I don't even know. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. It's right there for you. And it will upload the photos. Let's say I took 50 photos. It will upload them in the order of the file name or the file numbering. But the order of the photos is really, really important. I go into this in my photography program as well. But from a listing entry standpoint and being able to get that first impression and marketing the listing in the best possible way, I do like to cover the flow of the photos a little bit. Now, when you upload the photos, you can simply drag and drop in whatever order that you want. Really easy. Now, once you have them in the order that you like, hit save. And then you can go in and you'll see this little red pen. This is where you can change the orientation. If for some reason the photo came in upside down, sometimes that happens if you take pictures with your smartphone, the actual file that you maybe airdropped over or something like that came over upside down, and then you have to go in and open up the individual photo on your computer and change the orientation, and it's just really cumbersome. So what's nice is if that does happen, you can just simply rotate it right in Paragon and crop it if you need to. You also can go in and you can add labels and descriptions. So the label is 25 characters and the description is up to 255. And as you're typing, it will count down for you so you don't go overboard. But I definitely recommend adding captions, adding descriptions. They're going to get sent over to all the places. So this is your way to market that listing, point out things, create a continuity flow of the home where you're pointing out features, you're kind of selling the experience of living in this home, highlighting parts of it. Just kind of, I've tried to make the descriptions more conversational. You know, you're pointing out things. This is a great kitchen for hosting, large island, double ovens, things that like maybe they see in the photo, but they might miss. So you're really trying to highlight those extra features of the home. This home had a beautiful mudroom. I was very, very jealous of this mudroom, but it had built-in hangers and benches and little desk and all this stuff. So I made sure that when I was writing the description for this, it was a big part of the description, not just nice mudroom. An extremely useful mudroom with built-in benches, hangers for backpacks, purses, briefcases, and more. A little office space for bills and receipts, allowing your kitchen to be free of clutter, as well as a large walk-in pantry and coat closet. So little things like that where you can write a sentence or two or three describing the home. And we have, I mentioned my class, my photography class. I go through, I have a whole sample listing with descriptions and the flow of all the photos. But what I really try to kind of stress is the primary photo should be the full front of the home, a little bit of sky, full front of the home. I don't want to just see the entrance and some of the yard and grass. So think about it kind of broken up into thirds. The following photo should be a floor plan. So I'm going to show you a product called Cubicasa at the end that is included in your My Real Source membership. So we want to get a floor plan on every single one of the listings moving forward. There's so much value, so much demand for floor plans on listings. So a floor plan should follow that to kind of create that understanding of the home before then they go into the rest of the photos. The rest of the photos should follow roughly, okay? Everything is kind of depends on the home and things like that, but should be some sort of entrance. So whether that is the foyer, the front door, or the entrance from the garage, if there's a mud room similar to this home. The main spaces, a couple different angles of the main spaces, get to the meat and potatoes of the home. So it should be the main space that's closest to wherever you came in from. So if you came in from the front door and that living room is right there, couple different angles of the living room, then move to the next main space, which is going to be the kitchen, couple different angles, make sure you're showing where they are in relation to each other. And then if there is something that's creative about the home or nice that you want to do a creative close-up shot for, mix that in to whatever room that you are taking pictures of right at that moment. Then complete that first level if it is a 2-story, and then move upstairs. I recommend doing transitional photos where it might not be just like, bam, I'm jumping right into the primary bedroom. It's show the staircase, kind of show so that they know that they are on their way upstairs. I can give you an example of a transitional shot. Quick. All right. So I covered the whole first floor plan or first floor for this one. And then this is an example of a transitional shot. So moved on, did the complete floor plan, lower floor plan, and now I'm moving up and doing a transitional shot. Have a description that's describing all the bedrooms are up on the upper level. And then the primary bedroom, couple different angles of that bedroom. This was kind of a unique bedroom to take pictures of. So, and complete the primary bedroom, the bathroom that goes with that bedroom, the next bedroom, and then if there's another bathroom that pairs with 2 or 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. So have it go in order, and then complete the upper level, make your way down to the finished basement if there is one, the garage, and then the backyard, anything that's of special about the backyard, the community, the pool, the garden, stuff like that. Now, sometimes there might be something that's a really big selling feature of the home that you don't want to wait till photo 40 to get to. So you have your primary photo and now I'm jumping right into my living room and all of that. This house has an amazing backyard, an amazing property and a pole barn or something like that I want to make sure doesn't get overlooked at the very end. So go ahead, throw one of those in, but definitely save more for the end. If it is something that you know is important to the seller and you know is going to be a big selling feature or brings big value to the home, have that one little kind of teaser of that at the beginning following the primary photo. Then the floor plan, and then the flow of the home like I talked about. So when you go in, you can see right here that there's a virtual tour and a branded virtual tour. That's how those videos that I talked about will be displayed on the listing ticket. They'll also be on any single property websites and stuff like that, but you can kind of already see they're not hidden. They're right there up at the top on every listing to watch those tours. And then when you go in, and let's say you've added captions and descriptions, those captions, those descriptions, like I said, get sent over, but they're also displaying on the gallery, they display on the single property website, they get sent over in all the feeds that will display them. So they're worth taking the time to write these captions and these descriptions. Now, once you've maintained the listing data fields, you've added your photos, your captions, your descriptions, all of that. You can look at the overview of the report, make sure everything looks pretty good, and then go in and you can add any of your associated docs right in here that need to be added, or the admin, let's say the admin is in as you, assumed your identity, and going in and uploading those docs. And then if you wanted to schedule any open houses or tours, you can do that. There's also a live stream option. Not very many people are utilizing this right now, but during COVID and a little bit after, a lot of agents were scheduling a Zoom or some sort of streaming service, meeting service, and they would schedule an event and put that URL in there, date, time, and they would actually be at the property and talk about it, kind of doing like a live walkthrough. So just know that's an option if you have a seller that doesn't really want people coming into the house, a ton of people, or doesn't want to do a whole open house all day on a Saturday or anything like that. They have that option. But traditionally, for a traditional open house, you can go in, you can pick the dates, the times, any comments that need to be added, and then that will be, once that's saved and this listing is live, that'll be under, anybody can search tours and open houses if they want, but it'll also be displayed on all the listing tickets, the single property website, and all of that. Tour is very same thing, looks the same, layout's very, very similar. And so once you have your listing all set, ready to go, I recommend hitting, once again, save as a partial, come back with some fresh eyes, and when you're ready, or let's say there is, like what Colleen mentioned, a final check from the office, save it as a partial. Now that office admin can go in, verify everything, and then hit save listing. And it'll go live. And the way that that goes live is exactly what I was talking about with the data sharing, with all our regional, within the MLS, collaboration center, auto emails, all the things. So when it's live as a new listing, and you want to make sure that it is ready to rock and roll. It's doing the sellers a service and making sure that you hit all these stops along the way. Now, once that listing has been live, my RealSource members receive a single property website. Now, to find a single property website's really easy, because once you've made it live, guess what? Live. You get an email because you're the agent. So you can go in and open up that. It's a congratulations on your new listing. Here's a single property website. You can send that website out. You can post it on social media. You can promote it. A lot of times we were seeing, this is an example of the single property website. A lot of times we were seeing agents get so excited that they got a new listing, or that they just closed on one, or they have an upcoming open house and they wanted to promote it on their Facebook business page. Well, they're sharing it from some advertising portals that don't even have their name at the top. other listings that aren't even their listings. And the problem with that is, you're not going to get any of those leads coming from there. So what we created many years back is a single property website. And the single property website has high resolution photos, large gallery view, very icon based, easy to read, all the information that a potential buyer would need. And it also has the lead capture form, and it'll go right to your email. There's no advertising from any other agents. There's no advertising of other listings. This is all this agent's sold properties, all right there. And if Daniel had a open house scheduled, if he had a tour added, then it would all be displayed as little icons off to here and up here, so that when you save it when you promote it on social media, get that out there, all that lead capture, all that effort that you did in Paragon to perfect that listing will be all beautifully displayed on the single property website without advertising from any other agents. So that's really important to note, because sometimes I still see not as often as I used to, but sometimes we still see an occasional agent that will share from an advertising site, and you don't even see their name on it unless you have to dig and find it, who the listing agent was. Nope, it has advertising from somebody who paid for that space. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's say you missed the email. How do I just made my listing live. I went through all that. What do I need to do? How do I find my list? How do I find my single property website? If, let's say I missed the email, okay, or accidentally deleted it or something. You can pull up your property and you'll see this little house with a check mark. And that little house with the check mark will load that single property website for you. Now, when I was going through adding photos and everything like that, I talked about, and Colleen mentioned a product too called Cubicasa. So Cubicasa, Colleen, are you able to see the presentation? Jumped around a little bit, so I just want to make sure.
Yes, so I can. Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
Oh, no, okay.
Yes, I can see.
So in Cubicasa, or with Cubicasa, it's an app that's included in your My Real Source membership. Up to 5,000 square feet, you can scan and get a floor plan image to then add into your listing. So you'll get different files. You can choose different file formats. It also gives you the square footage for each room, so that you know that we have a source for Cubicasa in the MLS. That's how accurate these scans are. Now, floor plans are one of the top things that consumers want. That is something that's expected from a seller, but also buyers obviously really, really want this. So there's been a lot of research that's been done that we're behind in the States when it comes to floor plans on residential properties. It's very common on apartments, but guess what? You don't need them on your residential property that you're gonna go make the largest purchase of your life. No, we need them. So make sure that you are downloading this app. I will show you how to do all that. But if you have not been using Cubicasa, you need to sign up under My Real Sources account. Make sure it's the right link. Add your email, create your password, and then you download the app on your phone. The app is so easy to use. The first one is actually unlimited square footage. So you can do your whole house as a practice if you want, and go out around the pool and yard and all of that, but get familiar with it. What's really nice too about it is once you've done your scan and you've completed it, before you submit it, you can always go in and you can edit room names, you can add your branding and your logo and your color schemes. And then it does a really great job with kind of, well, for one, the accuracy of the square footage. But this was a concern that I had when we were looking at floor plan apps, is how is it really gonna recognize the house. This is just an app. Well, there's actually real people that when this scan gets done, there are real people behind the scenes that are looking at this to make it make sense because, you know, this house, somebody built a round house. You can see how it scans all of the yard if you wanted to include that. Pool, kind of odd shaped home. Somebody wanted a house shaped like a boot. I was worried about that when we were looking at these because my house is kind of a funky layout. We have a really, really big fireplace that does not seem like it would be a fireplace. It's almost a whole wall that separates part of our house. I had baby gates up at the time, tons of boxes in the back part of our basement. You could barely even see the wall. So it was like, how accurate really is this going to be? We have a staircase in the middle of our living room too that goes down, and then the big dividing fireplace wall. Speaking of 70s, our house was built in the 70s and it kind of has some of the 70s quirks to it. So things like that I was worried about. And it did a wonderful job detecting it all. And I think that that's the software, but I also think that the fact that real people are piecing this together, and then you can go in and make any edits and changes that you need to as well after. But in addition to the floor plan image, there's other things that you can do. That's not included in your My Real Source membership, but I get so many questions in my photo program, like, well, what could I hire? Who could I hire for this? Or what can I do for that? We also talk about all the promotional links in this class that you can add to your virtual tours, branded and unbranded. They have a lot of different options of extra services as well and extra reports that if you are creating them and adding that on under your My Real Source original account that you created, you get a 25% off discount on all those services. So I'm just going to show a little video of how this works. I'm not going to play this whole 7-minute video, but it gives you a little bit of a understanding to how easy this could be. Now, we do have a whole class on this too. Colleen teaches a whole class on it. She does a great job. It has some tips in the class, of course. Well, there's tips on how to do it, but also the app will let you know, slow down or needs more light, open doors, things like that. It is a continuous scan. So just know that it is a continuous scan. So you start up at the upper level or the bottom level and you just have to walk through the whole way. You're not just doing basement, main level, upper level and stopping. So you can see that he's walking through, following the perimeter of the house, a continuous scan. All the lights are on, doors are open. Make sure you complete the whole room. And then once you've done the scan, if you go outside, you do the pool area or the porch or all that. But once you've completed the whole scan, you submit your order. You can add any extra reports or anything else that you need. Make any of those edits that you would like. It uploads that scan for you to send over, payment, everything like that if you were to add anything extra on. About 6 hours later, I had mine around that mark, but depending on all your add-ons, it can be a little bit longer, but it's still very quick. You can see how he did the pool and the scan, all that, the file type. And then you'll get that also sent to you, so then you can upload it into your listing in Paragon. Colleen, is there anything that you want to say about Cubicasa? I know you teach the class and you use it a lot more than I do. Is there anything I was going to show the 3D rendering option, but is there anything about the product that you want to say?
I love the new interactive hotspots that they just added. That was a new recent addition. There was a lot of great questions from Matthew on today's class. He asked, in Paragon, when you were covering the 99 photos, he was saying, is there a way to kind of have like a quick tour of each place? And you can actually do that in Cubicasa's new interactive floor plan, because they give you these hotspots where you literally can upload photos into them.
Yeah.
So I think, Matthew, that's probably what you're looking for. And he also asked, where do you sign up? You can actually go right under resources and sign up. And Taylor's going to show you that.
Yep.
But no, that's all I had. Great job.
This says, thank you. Cubicasa floor plans. So if you were just to go in your phone right now and hit Cubicasa, search it, create an account, that's not going to be under the My Real Source blanket where it's covered up to 5,000 square feet. So you want to choose it from here, and this is the URL. You'll see the My Real Source logo up at the top. That's how you know you're using the right one. And then you can sign up. Once you've signed up from this URL, now you go in and you download Cubicasa and use that login, and you will be under the umbrella of My Real Source to get your scans covered. Now, I talked about some of the add-ons. I don't like to focus too much on it, but just because this is a marketing, the marketing piece of your new listing, that's kind of part Z when you get that listing out, and there's more to Cubicasa than just the floor plan image. Interactive tours like this. Colleen talked about the hotspot. I don't have that URL of the example hotspot. Colleen, I could, if
I just emailed it to you about 10 seconds ago. If you hit the top email from in your box right now, if you click on that link, it'll actually show. You can actually click on the hotspots to see them right from there.
Okay, cool. I will pull that up.
I just thought about it.
This is the 3D video rendering example. So you could get a URL and put that in there. So it's just kind of that experience. This is really great for, I mean, lots of purpose, but vacant homes. So it does, like, you do your scan, you send that file over, you choose 3D video rendering, and it fills in furniture and does the matching to the colors the best that it can. Obviously, this is a clear, it looks very real, but you can obviously tell it is a clear rendering. It's not going to be, it's not exact, because it does look like a rendering. So, all right, let me open up the hotspot thing that you sent, Colleen, real quick. I need to add this one to my presentation on it, because this thing is really cool. All right, so are you seeing it now?
Like yeah, yep, I see it.
All right, so this is the hotspot where you can kind of hit the photography points of it. But if you want to see the floor plan, and then they can click on it and they can kind of jump around. They can see the photo from the perspective of this hotspot right here, which is helpful.
And you can move those hotspots. The agent gets up to 26 hotspots. They only work on the inside so far. That's the only down thing I found, is like if you have a pool or something, you can't move them outside the house as of yet. They're kind of hard coded in the house, but you can move them anywhere in the house you like. So they can actually be literally seeing it from that view. And hopefully, Matthew, with the question that you asked, is there a way to kind of give a view right from that photo? This is kind of a way to do that.
Very cool. Yeah, this is pretty new. I remember seeing this not that long ago. This is really cool.
Yeah, I like it. I like they can go from floor 2 to floor 1, as you kind of just showed. They can But imagine your buyers are going through, they're seeing the photos from the MLS, and now they can literally click on it and see it just like you're seeing there. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Yep. So just keep that in mind for any extra marketing purposes, any kind of tours, things like that. They do also include that at a 25% off discount. So, all right, Colleen, well, I'm going to hand it off to you to go over the statuses, and then we'll be wrapping it up.
All right, sounds great. We did good. We made it under time today. That
We did it.
That seems to never I know. I'm like so proud of us. I'm like, wow, we're doing really good today. So just a couple of things to be aware of when it comes to statuses. A lot of people will ask, well, how do I get my listing to be 0 days on market? And used to be back in the olden days, because I'm old doing this now, 25 years ago, we put the listing on. If the listing got stale, we would then, take the listing off for a day and then we put it on again, or we'd lower the price by $1 back in the day. And those were all tricks that did work back in the day. But remember, back in the day, we didn't have IDX sources. We didn't have Zillow and Realtor.com, and those keep a cumulative days on market. And what that means is it's always counting, basically. So in order for a listing to show up new, it has to be completely off the market for a full 30 days. That means when you put the listing back on day 31, that does reset it as a brand new listing. So that usually comes up. People ask, well, how do I get the days on market to be 0 again? Also, in the last few years, there have been new statuses added. One of those new statuses is coming soon. And really that came about because agents were unfortunately not putting the best interest of their clients first. They would do things like what we call a pocket listing. They would basically stick a sign in front of the listing, and then Taylor's driving her buyers around and they say, Taylor, we want to see that listing. Taylor goes back to the MLS. That listing isn't in there, unfortunately. So Taylor does what a great agent would do. She starts calling the number on the sign, trying to get an appointment. Nobody is calling her back. Meanwhile, 5 days go by and Taylor's now clients are frustrated, like, why can't we get in that house? And lo and behold, it goes pending with the listing agent. So this was happening quite often. It was called pocket listings. And so NAR stepped in with Policy 8. And basically it says that if you are going to advertise a listing in any way, that you do have to put it into the MLS within 1 business day. Now, of course, that does not count holidays or weekends, but basically it's making sure that a property that is being advertised, that all buyers, because Taylor's people might have been writing a much higher offer than that listing agent ended up writing, but it wasn't it wasn't transparent to both the buyers and sellers, and it wasn't in the best interest of the client. Now, advertising can be a marketing postcard. It can be a Facebook post. It can be a sign on the front yard. It can be any type of marketing. And NAR goes into a big definition of what that includes. The goal really is that when a property gets listed, you have, now this is going to vary depending on which MLS you are with. Every MLS that we've under has their own rules. At my Rural Source, our rules are it can be listed as a coming soon property for up to 7 days. At that time at midnight, it automatically turns into an active listing. And no, you can't relist it again as a coming soon. It's a one-time deal. It doesn't have to be the full 7 days, though. It could be 2 days. Now, other MLSs have different rules. Some of them only allow for 48 hours or 2 business days. So you do want to check with your MLS or your board on what your policies are. But it's just a way to basically, if you need, let's say you have some painting that your homeowner wants to do and you want to market that property, you now have, for our rules, you now have that 1 business day to get it into the MLS, and then you can have up to 7 days for our rules at my Rural Source. Other MLSs may have varying time frames, but the rules of once you start advertising, it has to go in the MLS is the same. There is also ABO statuses. I'm not a fan of ABO. I'm just going to tell you, ABO is really it's being actively marketed but it really has a pending offer already placed on it. So we need to let our buyers know, don't fall in love with it completely, because really there's a pending contract on it. The seller's still agreeing to show that property. So just be aware. It's one of those statuses, it's pretending to be active, but really there is an offer in place. So as you're seeing these new statuses, you certainly want to know what they mean. And then lastly, I just show you, because we covered a lot of information today, and there's so much, and I have to tell you, if you haven't taken Taylor's photography class, that's an awesome class. We have classes from everything on public records and creating SOIs and mailing labels, right through, if you're new, we have a roadmap to success, so lots of classes. I do want to show you where you can find the classes and the recording from today. Give me a little time to get it up there. I'm going to try to get it up there by tomorrow. But under resources, we have a whole section of education. The first one is where you're going to find this class. Taylor was kind enough to put it in the chat. But if you just simply click on recorded webinars, that is going to take you to our YouTube channel that Taylor's done an amazing job with, keeping it all very organized. But if you click on videos, it will have each one of the classes. It'll have the date. So it'll be today's class. It'll have today's date. I know, Matthew, I think you were on the transaction desk class or the realist. I can't remember. I know I recently talked to you in one of them, but all of those classes are there. And it's a great way if you miss something or you want to see it again, or maybe you don't, maybe you don't use this. Maybe you don't have a listing for 2 or 3 months. If you want to go back and do a refresher, it's a great way to do it. And then lastly, under that same section, where did I go? Here I am. Under that same section, under resources, this is also where you can find up and coming classes. So if you click on that education corner, this shows you how you can easily register for any of the upcoming classes. And it's kind of a really cool idea. Taylor and I had to create an online kind of a magazine, if you will. You can just flip to whatever class you're interested in. So if you want to learn more about cloud that we covered today, you just click here to register. If you want to register for Taylor's super awesome real estate photography classes, or Taylor and I also teach another class that I think is an awesome class, which is tools for tackling low inventory in this market. Free tools that you can use that you already get to go out and get new listings, because that's certainly what we need right now, as well as Kubacasa here coming up on March 6th. So you can register for any of those classes. One final note, just remember, if you're coming in from any of our vendor MLSs, products do vary. So check with your board just to make sure that the product you're going to sit in on for that particular class is something that your MLS carries. So, all right, I think I got all the caveats in. How's that disclaimers? Did I get them all in there?
That was good. Are you tired?
Oh, you know what? It's a lot of classes this week. We've done a lot this week.
Well, you did a great job.
I did miss a couple questions that just came in. So let me see. This hotspot thing is way cool. Thank you, Matthew. I'm glad. I think you'll really love it. Again, we got that class coming up for Kubacasa. Thank you so much for all this information. Unfortunately, missed the first part. But great, yes, we just showed that. So under resources, you can go back and you can watch the recording. So if you did join us a little late, or hopefully if you had to step away to bottom line an offer or something cool, remember that you can, how about putting a non-broker notice? I'm not exactly sure the non-broker notice. I'm not sure what you're referring to. That might be a better email question, because that can be a couple different things and it can have some different rules. And will this be a go around? No, not a go around. It actually works with the NAR rule that was put in place. Let's see. As long as they don't say that it will be listed by a lot of different rules on that too, Matthew. That's probably a better question, probably just answered personally, which you can obviously email support, or you might even want to ask I think you're with a different MLS if I remember. That might be a great question for your MLS. So, all right, I think that's it. But really good questions today. I thought you did a great job. We certainly covered a lot. I think we covered some serious ground today. So great job, Taylor. And always, as usual, it's fun teaching with you.
Yeah, you too. All right, thank you guys so much, and hopefully see some names on the next class we teach.
Yes, go list some houses. We need the inventory. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye.